Hello and welcome, everyone. As we wait for everyone to join, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat because we'd love to know who's with us today. My name is Alina Blaga and I'm a policy advisor at WWF. So feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. We are really excited today to have you here for the launch of the Natura Connect Political Economy Analysis module, which is now live on our learning platform. So you will find more about it today in our presentation. So we will give you today like a sneak peek into this self-paced political economy analysis module. This is the purpose for today, yeah. But while we wait, as I said, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. And my colleague Marit is also like supporting in the chat, so she will share links with us today. And yeah, if you have any question, feel free to also ask it in the chat. So as we mentioned before, the webinar is being recorded. And all the presentations and recordings will be available on our website. Also, feel free to rename and say your organization and here you have the guidance of how to do it, so we know who's in the room. And yeah, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. We will start in less than a minute. And of course, feel free to write your questions and comments in the chat box. And if you have a specific question for one specific speaker, please indicate this in your comment. Okay, I think we can start. We might have a few colleagues that will still join us, but I would say let's start. So maybe next slide, Hildegard. So we thought to start, with some warm-up questions. They are designed like to ease you in, and it doesn't matter if you are completely new to political economy analysis or if you already have some experience. So these are very easy questions, and we would like to have some insights from you. So feel free to access the Mentimeter. You can either scan the QR code or you can follow the link that my colleague Marit shared in the chat box. And as soon as the answers come in, we will share them. We will leave this just for a second here in case some of the colleagues didn't manage to connect yet. And then we will share the results with you shortly. So feel free to answer those questions. For the ones that just joined, we are just now inviting you to answer a few warm-up questions just to get the pulse of the group, so to say, on this topic. So feel free to scan the QR code or to follow the link in the chat. And just share with us your thoughts on the questions. So answers start coming in. So here we wanted to see how much people in the group know about political economy analysis. So it might be new. Definitely for the conservation colleagues, it's something that it's starting to pick up, but it's still not everybody uses it. So it's a great opportunity to learn more about it for sure. We are happy that you joined for the ones that this topic is newer because, yeah, it's an opportunity, as I said, to learn more about it and to see how it can it can support you, especially now in these challenging times with many changes in the context we work in, and how we to see how we can, maximize our efforts. And now we have another question for the ones that already answered the first one. Um, so please feel free to write a first word that comes to mind when you hear political economy analysis, even if you are new to the topic, just what comes to your mind. And for the ones that just joined, you can see here on top where you can go and fill in your answers as well. And my colleague Marit just reshared the link as well. So I see complexity popping up, helpful, time taking. Definitely it can, you can go very deep with this kind of analysis, but you can also, you can decide how deep you go and how you can use it. I see strategy definitely when you are planning, you are in a strategic planning process can help a lot. I see power dynamics definitely. It's about, understanding how each stakeholder is placed on this map and how we can advance our advocacy as well. I see public policy, political bias, influence, governance. So definitely these are some some things that are connected with political economy analysis. We will wait just for one more minute to see if other answers come in. And of course, you can continue to share your thoughts in the Menti and to add answers as we will continue, because we will try to have like a screenshot at the end to see your answers. But yeah, strategy, complexity, definitely influence, power dynamics, these are keywords. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. And now we will actually go and give you a bit of an insight before you will actually go to the course and try to follow it at your own pace, and try to discover more. So what we will try to cover today with you, we just want to give you some essentials on political economy analysis, what it is, how it is used, why it matters. And we will look also a bit at the applications, and we will have some examples from WWF International and also from the Danube Carpathian region. We will also share with you some lessons that we learned along the way, while conducting the political economy analysis. And finally, we will show you where you can access this new PEA module, and you can start learning at your own pace. Next slide. And when we look at political economy analysis, you should look at it as a toolkit for making sense of this bigger picture, because applied PEA dives into the power dynamics behind change. So it helps you, understand this power dynamics. And I saw that in the Menti, some of you mentioned this actually. it looks at how, political, economic, and social-cultural forces interact, and it kind of reveals what drives the progress, what holds it back, and why change sometimes just stalls, and before it even starts. So it kind of helps us, choose the best strategy, so to say. Next slide. And here you see the PEA framework. So we can look at it and see, actually this scheme here shows us the steps to follow, the questions to answer when conducting a PEA. So the what, we should start with the challenge. What is the issue that you are tackling? And what you want to, what problem you are dealing with. The why is very important because it helps you dig deeper and see why does the problem exist, what's really driving it, to uncover the incentives, the interests. Interests were also mentioned in the Menti by one of our colleagues. You can find the hidden dynamics that shape the context you are working in. And here you have some building blocks that kind of guide you towards this process. When we talk about foundational factors, we think about the history, the geography, the socioeconomic conditions of the place you are working in. When we talk about rules of the game, we think about formal rules, laws, but also informal rules. So both of them. And when we talk about people and organizations, we think about key actors, institutions, but also the way they interact. Is not enough, to mention them, but try to see how they interact. So these are the building blocks that kind of guide you in the why, answering the why question. And then the how question, how to actually address it. This is kind of the last step and very important because it kind of charts the course of what you are going to do afterwards. And it helps you see what change is actually possible based on what you've learned from the previous step. Um, it helps you see how can outside actors support sustainable progress in the direction that we want to work in conservation specifically. So this is like the big framework to help you guide with the process, just to have it in a snapshot, so to say. Next slide. And because, sometimes it sounds so complicated, we thought that it is good to think of it as a game. And I took here the football game because we are so familiar, many of us, with it. So when we talk about foundational factors that I was mentioning before in the framework, those are like the playing field. This is fixed and unchangeable. It's like the geography of the country you are working in, basically. Then when we look at the rules of the game, this is, for example, the official playbook. But there are also informal rules. Sometimes the teams try to bend those rules in their advantage, and you have to figure out, in the strategy of the game. When we look at people and organizations, for example, in a game, you have the players, the coaches, the fans, and also other stakeholders, So even here you can see the correlations. But as we know, no two games are the same. And that's why the dynamics, the PEA dynamics are so important because they come into play when things are unpredictable. For example, in a football game, you have the weather, the home advantage, injuries of in the team, or even unexpected moves strategically in the team, So basically, every match requires you to be flexible and to adapt to the strategy to what's happening on the field. This is just, to make it a bit easier for you to understand these elements, building blocks of a political economy analysis. So this was just to give you a different perspective, so to say. Next slide. And here I just want you to give you some principles just to have them in mind, because indeed, as some of you actually mentioned in the Menti, this is sometimes complex and it feels like time consuming. And these are some principles to have in mind. and maybe we will go through them one by one. So maybe let's go to the first set of principles. So this is about getting under the surface of things, because we tend to tackle problems by looking at what is just in front of us. And I'm talking about policies, rules, organizations, but things that are really, really visible. Um, but that's just the surface. And that's why we gave you here, the example of an iceberg, because most of what really matters, sometimes it's hidden below. And political economy analysis is many times, trying to dive beneath the surface to uncover the real drivers, like the power dynamics, the informal networks, the unspoken rules, the deep-rooted values, things that actually can influence a lot what you want to do conservation-wise on the ground. And this is just a reminder that if we want impact, we have to understand also what's below the waterline, because it can make the difference, if your project or strategy falls apart or it takes root, basically. I just wanted to have you this in mind, and that's why it helps, this tool. It helps you go beyond what's obvious, so to say. Maybe then we can go to the next set of principles to have in mind. So here, when it comes to creating change, there are basically two key ways of thinking, and we have a political smart approach or a normative approach, And the political smart approach is all about the here and now, in a way. It's about understanding the reality on the ground and making solutions that actually fit the current situation. And even if this sometimes means making some compromises. And here you have a set of questions to ask yourselves. And then it means that you go through the political smart approach lens. So this is just to guide you. And then you can also take, on the flip side, we have the normative approach that usually imagines how things should be in a perfect world, and it brings many times outside ideas, best practices, but sometimes misses the local context and the real world challenges, and sometimes we have to try not to go into that trap in a way, because we tend to imagine all the things that we want, but sometimes you need a bit of compromise and to really, really understand the local context and what is possible in that context. So this is just to give you an idea of the path that our mind sometimes takes. And maybe the last set of principles, when conducting a PEA, we must understand that the world we are working in is not straightforward. And many of you mentioned in the Menti the complexity. Like sometimes you feel like, oh my God, I don't even. It's so hard to start it. It feels like so much. But the reality is that we work in these complex systems where political, economic, and social factors are connected and unpredictable. And it's kind of vital to understand them if we want to advance our conservation agenda. Then we also deal with a very dynamic context, like we have crises, disasters that happen even more and more, and that can shift the situation quickly. So this means that you also have to be adaptable. I mean, once you did the PEA, the political economy analysis, that's not something static. It's always changing and you have to tweak it, but it's good to have the basis and then to tweak it based on what is happening and to try to adapt your strategy. Because at the end of the day, uncertainty is kind of certain, especially, in the current context. So you always have to be prepared and look at these things. So this is just an idea, and actually, I have to say that you gave very good insights, with what comes in your mind when you think about political economy analysis. You were kind of spot on, I have to say. So thank you so much. I will maybe we can go to the next one. So We will, as I said in the introduction, we will also try to give you a bit of flavor of the application, you know. And my colleague Balázs Horvat from WWF Central and Eastern Europe, who's regional policy lead, will give you some insights on that. And prepare your questions and leave comments in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alina. So now some words about the application of the PEA2. So in my first slide, you can see that the three typical professional tasks which we use PEA for. So first is the analysis. So what is the context of the problem in a territory where we work? And we need to understand the real situation in that territory. The second, we need to plan and strategize, so develop strategy for a desirable change. So we have a situation which is problematic, so we need to change it. We need first a strategy, and then we have to plan in the first step concrete interventions, concrete steps to deliver this desirable change. Next slide, please. So at what level we can apply? So I saw also in the Menti that you consider this very complex, which is in many cases true, but you can also apply political economy analysis as a part of your daily routine, meaning that you can go through or use the questions which were actually presented by Alina in yourself for a very specific problem, and ask when you ask the right questions, it opens up the possibility for solutions. Also, you can use at the territorial levels in very wide internationally, regionally, nationally, or even in a local level. But you can also apply it to a sector or landscape level analysis. So, for example, one sector is problematic. When we talk about conservation, there are several sectors which are problematic in our work. So you can also make an analysis of a sector. And you can do a micro problem-driven analysis as well for a particular problem at the project level or at local level. Next slide, please. So also in the WWF, we worked out a kind of variation of the PEA, which is called PASI, so PEA for Conservation Impact, because we conservationists would like to describe what needs to be changed to achieve our conservation goals and why things happen in a positive or negative way, or why things are not moving, not changing at all. So it helps us to identify the power relations, who has the power, who determines the level of power, how power is exercised, because in many cases, as in the conservation world, the resources do not really have let's say, monetary value. There are other players who has more power, so we need to understand these power games. Next slide, please. So for us, it's very helpful because we can dig very much deep into the causes of the problem, and we can understand how things are done and how change happens and how the pathways, what are the pathways towards those changes. And many times we would like to achieve everything, but we need to set achievable goals. So we have to put our feet on the ground, and the PASI helps very much to stay in the real world. Also, we need to design clear points of action, clear interventions, and it's never a straightforward thing. You can plan something, but then as Alina mentioned, all the circumstances are changing continuously. So you need to adapt step by step your plans, your interventions to the situation. We need to assess and manage also the risks. There are many risks for us conservationists with the species and extinction and ecosystem problems, and it's very costly to repair things if you do mistakes. So this is also brings back to the adaptive management part. We need to understand the relative power of conservation, as I mentioned, and the consequences of, for example, government policies or any other uh, things which are done by these powerful players. And of course, we need for our action funding, and we can identify the aspects and trends of funding. And last but not least, we need to engage with partners because conservation is done by many sectors, by many stakeholders. We need to understand them, their interests, their incentives in the points we can be linked to them. Next slide, please. So what is PEA about? Is about best fit and not best practice. What does this mean? We have specific locations at specific times on particular issues. So we cannot go for perfection. We need to see what fits best to our specific problem. It's also about for us to look at groups, people who has no or less power than others. So it's also about social inclusion for us. And we normally look at opportunities, so not only at risks, but if you do a very good PA, it's definitely opportunities are coming out of it. It's a complex analysis. It's true. It's not only a political or economic analysis. A lot of things like in the football field, you have to take into consideration, and it's not the end of a process. It's a start of a process. So when you finalize your PA, it means that you start interventions, you start the action from that point. So this is basically step 0. Next slide, please. So here on the right side, you can also see some tools which we use in our work. So just 2 examples. The 5 whys technique is with which you can dig really deep into the problem, the basis of the problem. And there is another tool called AAA change space tool. So with this, you can check out which stakeholders has the authority to do something, to do the change, which stakeholders can accept it, and which stakeholders have the ability to do this change. And there are others as well. So this can help you in your daily work on PASI. And also there are examples. You can see here jaguars and tigers to which the PASI was already applied. But this this will not be myself to present it, but one of my colleagues. So next slide, please. So this will be examples and experience from a PEA application. Next slide. And here, my colleague Mikol Martini from WWF International will give you some examples. She cannot be here today personally, but she recorded a video for us. So she will speak about power relations. She will speak about these concrete examples where the PASI was used already at WWF practice. And she will also tell us about some internal WWF trainings just to showcase how PA is important in our work. So with this, I thank you, and up to Mikol.
Hi, I'm Mikol Martini, and I work with the Inclusive Conservation and Governance Unit at WWF International. I work as a senior expert on environmental governance and conflict. A core part of our work at WWF involves understanding and addressing harms to biodiversity and to the people who depend upon it. An integral part of this is examining the role of power in these harms. Vested interests are often behind the environmental issues we're trying to address and prevent, but power is also at the root of change. Challenging and shifting these dynamics means ensuring first and foremost that we understand them, why these harms happen, what incentive structures are at play, and how these are rooted in power dynamics. This includes examining who controls what, how they benefit even inadvertently from harm, and what formal or informal rules allow state powerful actors to do that. And in our work, we're particularly focused not just on power, but on addressing power asymmetries, so shifting power from entrenched interests to those at the more local level. With this understanding of the role of power, how it may lead to harm, of the inequities around power, and what has or might lead to shift those dynamics towards more positive and equitable outcomes is really the purpose and purview of political economy analysis, or PEA. And PEA helps us to understand the nexus of power in any given context, how it intersects with, shapes, or impedes the goals we're trying to achieve, and how with that understanding we can start to enable change. Because of this fundamental importance, our network in WWF has significantly expanded efforts to integrate political economy thinking in our work, both to understand the risks faced, but also to uncover realistic, actionable change pathways. So, for example, in Ukraine, WWF commissioned a political economy analysis on post-war reconstruction's risks to environmental sustainability. It found that oligarchs involved in energy and construction, enabled by a weak judiciary, collusion with politicians, and gaps in independent oversight bodies that were capable of checking corruption posed urgent risks. But it also recognized that addressing these issues was a common aim to a robust civil society movement, which had been really crucial to reforms in the past under the Maidan Revolution. And bringing the environment into this coalition presented a new and powerful opportunity. Also, in the Eastern Plains landscape in Cambodia, WWF conducted a political economy analysis to look at drivers of deforestation in an area being explored for a REDD+ project. This context, the Eastern Plains, is marked by a huge amount of biodiversity, but it's also home to local communities that are very reliant on natural resources for their livelihoods. The team was able to unpack power dynamics and leverage their own networks to develop a new theory of change, which focused on working with and through government, encouraging partners to show leadership on this issue by coordinating across line ministries and with communities to encourage forest resource stewardship within protected areas. And also in Mexico, a PEA was done for and with WWF on drivers of the illegal jaguar trafficking in the Selva Maya region. This PEA found that, in fact, the increase in conflict between humans and jaguars from land use changes was a causal factor in exacerbating a largely domestic illegal trade in jaguar parts, but that this relationship to the domestic market or to issues around human-wildlife conflict were not really being considered in broader approaches in IWT. And that was leading to a lack of prioritization, effective coordination of the right stakeholders, or a systemic response. So we can see in these contexts and examples from our own work in WWF that PEAs have been really helpful to help teams to identify root causes as well as new pathways. Now, we understand the importance of this, but unpacking power using PEA is not always straightforward. And with this in mind, the Inclusive Conservation and Governance Unit, where I work, has been really focusing on efforts to make PEA more accessible and useful to our network. So in 2020, what was a governance practice and is now the IC Gov unit developed the Political Economy Analysis for Conservation Impact Framework, or PECI, and as well as a suite of online courses. There's a self-paced course that is still available in English, French, and Spanish. On top of that, over the past few years, we've provided long-term mentorship to several teams to support them and facilitate their work through the process of conducting and applying a political economy analysis to a specific strategy or problem. And these mentorships have taken place in Cambodia, in Cameroon, are now wrapping up in Laos and across the southern Kenya and northern Tanzania landscape, working together. We've also started work with teams in Myanmar and Bolivia, and there will be, we aim, another round of mentorship support in 2026. In addition, we've provided ad hoc support to teams interested in applying PEA to their work. Looking ahead, we're launching a training of trainers initiative to support network champions who already have experience in political economy analysis, with the aim of enabling them to mentor others through a peer-to-peer model. So this approach really hopes to strengthen collaboration across our offices and expand our capability to integrate political economy thinking at greater scale. And we're also in the process of working with colleagues to provide guidance on how to bring PEA into core planning processes. For instance, strategy development under the OSP guidance, how we manage programs and projects via PPMS, monitoring and evaluation via PMEL, and safeguarding in the ESSF work. So that's where we are today. We'd love to hear insights from you and colleagues on how we can make political economy analysis even more accessible to teams across the WWF network. If this approach resonates or you'd like further support, I encourage you to reach out. And thank you so much for the opportunity to contribute.
Now I think it's a moment to give you also some insights in the PEA that we conducted on the Danube-Carpathian region, and my colleague Hildegard Meyer, who's the Natura Connect project manager at WWF Central and Eastern Europe, will give you some insights on this.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Alina, for the nice introduction. Let's dive into the case study we conducted in the Danube-Carpathian region. Took us around 1.5 years. We did this in cooperation with BirdLife and the Institute for European Environment Policy based in Brussels. And we conducted this not only in the Danube-Carpathian region, but also in the other pilot regions of the Natura Connect project, which are at the national level in France, Finland, and we have 2 also regional ones in Doñana and in Leipzig-Halle and Portugal, I forgot. Sorry. So I'm presenting here very briefly how we did this and what the key findings were. And honestly, I actually want to make you curious to dive deeper into this topic on our learning platform. So there will be only a glimpse of this, what we have done. So the aim of this political economy analysis was to analyze the country-specific contexts on governance and protected area and ecological connectivity and financing across 15 countries in the Danube-Carpathian region, whereas 5 of them are outside of the European Union and 10 are member states. So there is a huge difference we could see. And then the second aim was to find possible pathways of change and formulate interventions to improve the implementation of a coherent ecological network with a strong network of protected areas. All this is settled in the EU biodiversity strategy for 2030, where within the European Union, 30% of the land should be dedicated to protected areas, and these protected areas should be coherently connected to each other through the Trans-European Nature Network. The same is mentioned in the Convention on Biological Diversity, so also our countries that are outside of the European Union need to follow this policy. So I saw that many of you are outside of Europe even who are participating in this call. So I will give you a short overview where we are. I mean, I did not copy now the Europe as such in there, but you can see that our region starts in Germany, goes via Austria, Czech Republic, and then spreads all over Poland, Ukraine, Bulgaria, Romania, Serbia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Montenegro, Slovenia, Hungary, and Romania. So you see it's a huge region in the located in central and southeastern Europe. And why is this region so important? Because this region still harbors a lot of a huge amount of biodiversity, featuring natural habitats and large complex areas that are still in a good shape, so that 2/3 of our large carnivores in Europe are roaming around. And one, you can see the wolf, the lynx, the bear, and the bison. The European bison, and then we also have a very nice freshwater species to be protected, which is the sturgeon. So just to get a glimpse where we were working. So how did we do it? I will tell you a little bit about the research efforts we took. So in a first step, we internally worked out the problem statement, which you can see here in this so-called fishbone diagram, with in blue underlined the problem statement that came up after 2 internal workshops. So the problem is the weak and ongoing loss of ecological connectivity of protected and conserved areas. We also identified 4 causes. I'm not going to read them out loud, just to see that it was a very complex issue to state this problem, and all the other work is based on this. So we, based on this problem statement and finding the causes and the root causes and the sub-causes, we developed interview guidance and interviewed people across the Danube-Carpathian region. We had 47 semi-structured interviews. We also sent out surveys, not only to the Nature Conservation Society, but also to other sectors, experts like agriculture, forestry, water management. And in parallel, we conducted a literature review with the help of artificial intelligence, so machine learning. And we also reviewed many policies and tools that we know from the national level. And we also engaged with stakeholders directly and discussed barriers and enablers in 2 workshops. So all this was then put together. The semi-structured interviews we analyzed with the help of a tool, MaxQDA. It's called MaxQDA because it was a huge amount to analyze. And in the end, I will just bring you the key findings that we could reveal. So to our the historical legacies, they left a lot of traces in nowadays governance of protected areas and ecological corridors. So we found out that through the collectivization during the communism, the connection of the farmer to nature was reduced. Then after the fall of the communism, land was restituted. But in some cases, there are unclear property rights because many people went out of the country and live somewhere else, and so we sometimes do not know who is the owner of a certain land. Then also land abandonment is a topic also in relationship to these land restitutions. And also after entering the European Union, new laws and protected areas were implemented, sometimes not really involving the local stakeholders. So the understanding for protected areas was or is not very anchored. So these are all historical legacies that still influence certain circumstances in these countries. Then some other key findings are related to the regulatory framework. So we have, in some countries, we have existing laws, but they are weakly implemented. And in other countries, there is a lack of laws and regulations for strategic planning in economic sectors. So it's always concerned about nature conservation, but the message does not reach the economic sectors. Then the policies that have been developed, they do not have the required impact on spatial planning, which is an important tool when it comes down to planning protected areas or ecological corridors. And then it's always also sometimes the case that there is a mismatch between the scale of implementation and of the action needed. So there is a law saying in this certain area you need to implement, or you can implement ecological connectivity, for example, but then you would need to reach a wider region to really implement it effectively. So this is sometimes the case, which makes it very difficult. And then we have other key findings. I think they are quite obvious to everybody of us. So there is little awareness of the ecological connectivity and green infrastructure benefits. So to receive support from the civil society is also difficult, because we need to better explain and to better involve and raise awareness for these groups. Then there are still technical capabilities and knowledge gaps on how to integrate ecological connectivity into economic projects, how to mitigate impacts on ecological connectivity or protected areas. This is a big point here. And then, of course, we also have public funding lags for longer term perspectives and safeguards. So you can implement a project that has a duration of 2 to 3 or 4 years, and afterwards it's very difficult to further on work on the implementation, for example, of ecological connectivity in these areas. This is a longer term process, because you need to involve many stakeholders. It's time consuming, as you already mentioned, also in the Mentimeter. And then what is also the case, there is many interest in one little piece of land: agriculture, water management. The economic sector wants to build linear infrastructure for renewables, for example. So there is almost no conflict management mechanisms in place to overcome these problems. Then I'm coming to the conclusions. This I draw out of our study. So we would need to tackle landowners and managers' fears of the restrictions, or there might be, we need to talk about compensation, and also we need to guarantee that this piece of land is something really valuable for society. Then, this leads me to the next point, that we need to raise awareness to make people understand why ecological connectivity, green infrastructure is important. And what is very important is to overcome the silo thinking. So we need to establish platforms or mechanisms for collaborations across sectors. And then, of course, I mean, who owns a lot of land, and who has a lot of money has the power. And in some case, we need to overcome the imbalance of power between businesses and nature conservation, to make aware that we all live on nature, and it needs to be protected. Good. This is a short glimpse into our study we did. If you want to read the entire thing across all the 3 case studies in the Natura Connect project, I'm leaving here the link. You will receive this presentation later on, and then you can go to this link and find this review. And in the end, I hope you are curious and you want to learn more and enter the Natura Connect learning platform. So I'm introducing this to you very shortly. So our target audiences are biodiversity conservation managers, spatial planning technicians, and data analysts, but also protected area managers or NGOs who are interested. And our objectives, what we would like to reach with the Natura Connect learning platform, is to improve conservation planning and to empower users to apply Natura Connect outputs. It's self-paced. It's with standalone modules. You can choose whatever you are interested in, and it's hosted by the European Nature Academy. We have 3 different sections where we talk about concepts around ecological connectivity, green infrastructure, and extension of protected areas. And we have another section on governance where this political economy analysis module is placed. And then we have direct technical tools how to plan. Exactly, and we have a lot of links to other platforms. So I think it's an interesting tool to have a look. So yeah. We are coming to the question and answer session. So if you have any questions or you have, I will ask Marit. She is checking the chat box. If there are any questions, please do so now. We can take some. Marit, are there any questions?
Yes, there is a question. We have one question from Mara. She's asking, do you recommend the PEA to be done in-house or to commission it to external research experts with advanced competences in this type of analysis? It looks very complex and needs different skills, and I'm not sure how to approach that hidden part of the iceberg in a time and efficient, accurate way. So yeah,
Yes.
in-house or commission it to external research experts.
Yes,
Balázs, do you want
thanks,
to? Okay, yeah.
Marit. Yes. I already wrote something into the chat to Mara, so it's a very good question. But it depends very much how deeply you want to go into this thing, because you can go for a bit more in the surface assessment, which you can direct in-house, or if you can decide on a more complex dive deep analysis with many different experts, which can need external experts. What I see is that it's really, you need different kind of experts which you might not have in-house. So if you still want to keep the coordination in-house, it's possible, but then I still suggest to try to find external experts to be involved in your, let's say, in-house assessment.
And maybe if I can add, like, for example, in this case that we talked about the Danube-Carpathian region, we had, for example, a workshop with a UK consultancy on PEA to understand very well the framework, and to bounce some ideas on how to frame the questions, for example, in the interviews, in the workshops. So it was a mix of in-house and commission, but actually the commission part was more like to guide us and help us understand very well the concept and to validate our approach, our strategy in conducting it. But most of it, I mean, it was led by us and it was done in-house, and it helped a lot to own it, and to also, when you have interviews, like you have so good, we build, these connections with stakeholders, and it's much easier to get the insight, that what's like below in the iceberg, if you have those relationships built and you have an interview, you yourself, with the stakeholder that then bringing, an external expert that has no relation and just ask the questions that the person won't open, so it's kind of tricky how to navigate, but I think it's important for the team to own it. But it's important also to have some consultancy to bounce back ideas and to see if your strategy is the best, if you ask the right questions, to make sure that the team understands all those steps and what the result should be.
If I can just add one thing. So indeed, we had questionnaires and we had semi-structured interviews. And the semi-structured interview always takes more efforts and more time, but you get much more deep down into the iceberg, because you get, during an interview, you can get some really informal issues or information which you don't get from a questionnaire. So questionnaire is easier, but if you really want information which is informal and you really want to create a trust with your stakeholder, the interview worked for us much better.
Thank you, Balázs and Alina. I hope this answers your question. Yeah, and when I look at our watch, we have only 1 minute to close. So I would say thank you very much for your attention and for joining us. And I hope you got a nice insight into the political economy analysis methodology with some examples. And finally, we would like to ask you for feedback on this launch event. So here you find the QR code where you can evaluate how you liked this event, and we would we appreciate very much if you do so. And yeah, last but not least, thank you very much for listening and engaging. And I hope this webinar made appetite to enroll in the learning platform, and hopefully see you there. Goodbye.